Welcome to Kansas Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers. On this week's program, we talk with Dr. Dan O'Brien, K-State Ag Economist, about what's going on in the grain markets from a bigger picture. We have a few reports that have come out, and he gave his outlook at the recent risk-profit conference that took place on the campus of Kansas State University. We'll also have features from Kansas Corn, Kansas Wheat, and the Kansas Farm Bureau, along with a weekly update from the Kansas Livestock Association and market information from Pinion.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farm and ranch families since 1919, kfb.org. And the Kansas Wheat Commission, lending in the adoption of profitable innovations from wheat. Online at kswheat.com.
A modest rebound in U.S. wheat production and supplies is improving the outlook for profitability among elevators that store wheat. Future markets carries that have improved for all three major classes of wheat, and the buy basis is widening following a bigger harvest, as according to a new report out from CoBank. The larger harvest follows 2 years of poor production and a historic run of inverted futures markets that have sapped the profitability for storing wheat. But as CoBank says, the major risk to elevators in the year ahead will be a sharp rally in the wheat price, as wheat stocks among major exporters are historically tight, at least right now, and any disruption to the flow of Russia exports through the Black Sea could cause issues as well and trigger a sharp price run-up. CoBank economist Tanner Emke said the flood of cheap Russia wheat into the global market may have created a false sense of security in that world wheat market. Russia currently harvesting a near record wheat crop with substantial carryover inventory from last year's record size harvest. Well, Kansas State University agriculture economists have completed a broad analysis of the impact of grid pricing on the cattle industry, concluding, among other findings, that producers and consumers have benefited from negotiated pricing agreements. K-State livestock economist Dr. Ted Schroeder said grid pricing of fed cattle refers to valuing a lot of cattle based on carcass merit, including premiums or discounts for such traits as quality grade, yield grade, preferred weight, special branded programs, and more. He adds that most cattle sold under the grid pricing system use a marketing agreement with packers, including a base price and a schedule of premiums or discounts applied to the cattle that are delivered to the packer. Schroeder and K-State Ag Economics graduate student Katie Delmet have identified recent trends in grid pricing and the implications for the cattle industry. The paper is entitled Fed Cattle and Beef Premiums at a Discount. It is available online through the agmanager.info website. It's maintained by the K-State Department of Ag Economics. And USDA is still unable to meet all the demands for four popular conservation programs, despite some $850 million in Inflation Reduction Act funding that the agency was authorized to spend this year. Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack this week said the department has received more than $2.5 billion in requests for environmental quality incentive programs, conservation stewardship program, the regional conservation partnership program, and agricultural conservation easement program. He said the demand is extraordinary. He says we've got 3.5 times the amount of demand that we have money for. We'll have more coming up in just a moment.
The Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Grain Sorghum, growers working together. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. grassandgrain.com.
And joining us is Dr. Dan O'Brien, K-State Ag Economist, and we have caught up with him at the Risk Profit Conference. Every year, K-State puts it on right before school starts. So we're going to talk pretty generalities because we know the markets have been volatile, Dr. O'Brien, but you kind of give an outlook looking into harvest time and winding up the year, maybe a little prognostication.
Yes, there's the information we have right now. Certainly, up to this point, with rainfall over the last couple of weeks, certainly affected corn and soybean prices, and we had gone lower, particularly for corn. Again, we caught some moisture after being dry in July, and the markets took that as a signal for both corn and soybeans that, hey, with those July numbers of 50.9 for beans for a yield and 175.1, well, maybe they're going up. But now I guess we're still in the growing season, and now hot and dry conditions coming along, and the percentage likelihood of yields moving sideways to lower has been increased, and we see that in the most recent current grain market bid. So I guess it's too soon to say that these crops are made, and really the one that's most vulnerable, I think, and I think that you see it in the futures, it reflects it, would be the soybeans. Again, we're in August. We make corn in July, we make soybeans in August is the general rule of thumb, and so we're a little more vulnerable sitting here just after the middle of August for soybeans, and frankly, the bean supply demand balance sheet, by the time we have been chopping down acreage on that, there's just not a lot of room to be chopping yields without having to start to ration usage and see prices run up.
It seems like probably the biggest unknown is where exactly the I states are going to come in.
Well, that's right. It is hard to know. The drought monitors say that Iowa, good chunk of Illinois, southern Minnesota they're dry. Yet the rainfall that had come in was wetting the topsoil enough to keep that thing going. Well, it gets hot and dry with it. You'll dry out that topsoil underneath. There's not much there. So we said it's just an interesting time. It's you don't want to be over dramatic,
right.
but what we thought we had as a sure deal for strong yields going up from here seems to be now at risk or in question, and makes a difference in the market.
Most are asking, will we see a harvest rally? Or it's still too early to tell?
Will we see dry weather for the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, okay.
If the answer would be yes, probably to both.
Dr. Dan O'Brien, Ag Economist, is joining us. We're going to take a break, come back, and try to figure out what's going on with wheat. We'll do that in just a moment.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Livestock Association, supporting members' business interests and meeting consumer demands. KLA.org. Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web at oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. And Kansas Corn, building the future at kansascorn.com.
Dr. Dan O'Brien, K-State Ag Economist, is joining us. And Dan, before we get into wheat, let's just talk, again, where are we going to be a year from now? I mean, it seems like it's been such a struggle to get weather premiums in these grains this year.
I think that our friends in South America are not far from their planting season. And right now, what do they see? They see pretty strong soybean prices, okay, but not gangbusters corn prices, and so they right now, and given the challenges they have in getting fertilizer down there in Brazil and Argentina, very likely that they'll come in strong on their soybean acres and still have a good amount of corn, but so. My contention is that a year from now, they'll probably look at all that much more of an increase in soybean plantings, and corn will be about sideways. And frankly, these 2023 24 marketing year numbers for the world and for the U.S. are dependent on normal weather, great production in South America, and given what's happening with weather patterns and the shift from a La Nina to El Nino, it's just not sure what's going to happen. So so when you wonder about weather premium in the market, or when we talk about price premium, it could come from weather, it could come from whatever. I think we have a subtle thing happening underneath this, and that even though we're glad to see that Ukrainian farmers are doing decently, they still have production problems. They're logistically they have problems keeping up the same production they had, and getting more difficult to get grain out of the country. Okay. So all that whittles down and keeps tight world supplies. So a year from now, I guess if we just have wonderful crops down in the southern hemisphere, we'd start to rebuild stocks. We'd be about at these levels, but there's a long ways to go before we can answer yes with surety to that question.
Quickly on wheat, the drills are going to be running before too long. What are you thinking? It seems like nobody wants wheat anywhere.
What signals are we telling Kansas farmers right now? I think you have to. I question. Well, will we pretty soon turn around and the market get concerned about? Hey, we need some hard red burn wheat acres for next year, and we need to show that, give an incentive. Right now for new crop bids, they're marginally, they're at or above break evens. So what signals are we giving to Kansas farmers? I think the biggest decision will be biggest issues will be their crop rotation and whether they have moisture or not. But on the margin, lower prices aren't helping that decision right now.
Okay. Dr. Dan O'Brien, K-State Ag Economist. You can find out a lot of things he talks about at agmanager.info. So we'll be back with more coming up in a moment.
Premier Farm and Home has what you need to make your lawn the best in the neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Ken. We choose Premier Farm and Home for the professional look that we do ourselves.
Feel free to stop in. You can also visit our website at heycow.com.
My name is Rachel. I'm an agronomist at K-State, and today we're going to talk about the reproductive phases of corn plants. So I'm standing here in a cornfield, and if you look at these plants, you can see that we've got ears down here, and at the top we see a tassel. And corn is really special because the male and female parts of the plant are in different sections. In a lot of flowers, they have male and female together. So the ear is the female part. This is where we'll find the kernels, and the tassel is where the pollen develops. And when we're talking about pollination in corn, what happens is the pollen drops from the tassel and will land on the silks that are coming out of the ears. That process lasts for about 3 to 5 days. So if all your corn plants aren't about the same stage at the same time, they might not pollinate because there's a very short window for that to happen. When we're talking about the different phases of the reproductive cycle in corn, there are 6 key stages to that. R1, which means reproductive 1, the first reproductive stage, is silking. And I have an ear here. That is silking. You can see it's a really small ear, but there's silks that are coming out the top. You can see these are still white and red. The ears on these plants behind me are a lot more mature, so they're kind of brown. They've been here for a while. But each one of these silks, if you were to peel the husk back and look at this ear, we can see that each of those silks is attached to a unique spot on this ear. Each of these silks will become a kernel. So if you have an ear that has 300 kernels on it, 300 different corn seeds, there are 300 silks that come out the tip of that ear that have to pollinate. So the pollen will come and land on these silks, travel down the silks to the kernel, and when the pollen reaches the kernel, that's called fertilization. And then we can move on to the next reproductive phase, which is R2. It's called blister, because the kernels start filling with a clear liquid, kind of like a blister, which is gross, but that's why we call it the R2 blister stage. At that point, the plant starts putting more starch into those kernels, and we reach R3, which is the milk stage. This ear is at milk stage. If you like sweet corn, like I do, R3 is the stage that we pick sweet corn at because the kernels are starting to get some starch and sugar in them, but they're not solid yet. So if I were to squish these with my finger, you can see that they're squirting everywhere. They kind of squish and there's milky liquid coming out. R3 is milk because the inside of the kernel, the contents look like milk. So that's the R3 stage. After R3, the kernels continue to fill with more starch. They get harder and harder. If you've ever had sweet corn that you were eating and it was really tough and didn't taste very good when you were eating it, it had probably reached the R4 stage, which is dough, the dough stage. The inside gets a lot more grainy and tough. And that process of filling the kernels keeps continuing. We go to R5, which is dent. These plants behind me are at dent stage. So if we open up one of these ears, pull the husks back, we can see that on the kernels that pollinated, we see that not all of them pollinated. So this one came too late, and the pollen from the tassel, when it landed on the silks, it was too late. It didn't pollinate. We have some kernels that did make though, and you can see that they have a dent in the top. And R5 is called the dent stage because we start to see a dent. Now, I said there were 6 R stages, 6 reproductive stages. We're at R5. So how much of the seed's dry weight do you think it has at stage R5? We're over halfway, so you might think that it should have well over half of its weight, right? But actually at the beginning of R5, corn kernels only have about 50% of their final weight. So R5 to R6, there's a lot of starch that's being put into these kernels, and that starch comes from the sugars that the leaves are making. But corn also has the ability to store sugar in its stalk, so it will move that into the ear as well. So at R5, we go from 50% of its dry weight to 100% of its dry weight at R6. R6 is called black layer because that means that at the base of the kernel, if you scratch the tip back, you'll see a black layer on that kernel, which is actually the corn's belly button, which means it's not getting any more nutrients from its mom, from the plant, and it's its own seed that we can then take and plant next year. And those are the reproductive phases of corn from R1 silking all the way to R6 mature. We need to wait after R6 for the grain to dry down enough that we can harvest it, and then the farmer can pick it and it gets sold.
What if U.S. soybean meal were more than a commodity? If seed companies and the soybean checkoff built a better variety? That future is here. The time is now. To meet end-user demands, the soybean checkoff is investing in the compositional quality of soybeans, including meal. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Exports of Kansas wheat may be in short supply right now, but working with international customers is a critical piece of developing and maintaining long-term markets. That's why decision makers from agribusiness companies in Nigeria and Kenya traversed Kansas in early August to learn more about hard red winter wheat and the U.S. grain supply chain as part of a trade team organized by Kansas Wheat and U.S. Wheat Associates. Aaron Harries, Vice President of Research and Operations for Kansas Wheat, said harvest results may differ from year to year, but coordinating local visits directly connects our customers with the dependable farmers who are committed to growing high-quality wheat. Trade team participants represented 2 distinctly different types of overseas markets, large and well, established customers and emerging markets that present future market opportunities. Both are important to the long-term mission of U.S. Wheat Associates, the industry's export market development organization, which invests funding from USDA Foreign Agricultural Service export market development programs to bring trade teams of overseas customers and stakeholders to the United States each year. These visits provide important selling points in a world marketplace where Kansas wheat producers compete against their counterparts in Canada, Argentina, Australia, and the Black Sea. US Wheat is assisting growing flour industry particularly by working with up-and-coming millers who are just learning their trade. By providing technical assistance in areas like grain analysis, test milling, flour analysis, and test baking, US Wheat helps grow the region's milling industry and increase those millers' knowledge of and experience with US Wheat classes and their different functionality and advantages. US Wheat also works with the flour industry to address trade policies like important requirements that would increase costs or complications in future imports of US Wheat. Learn more about the trade opportunities and issues affecting the Kansas wheat industry at kswheat.com/international.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
Farmers are always there for each other. We shed tears together, we celebrate together, but we also grow together. Farm Bureau's meant so much to me and my family. My dad encouraged me early on when I was a young farmer, complaining about problems on the farm. He said, son, if you want to make a difference in that area, you got to get outside your fence rows. So he took me to a Farm Bureau meeting, and I became part of the Young Farmer program. It taught me leadership development. It taught me how to speak up and be heard, and that's what we do best at Farm Bureau. Farm Bureau is the largest general farm organization in the country. We're made up of 50 state farm bureaus in Puerto Rico. And in those states, we have the most powerful part of our organization, and that's the grassroots, the farmers and ranchers that actually produce the food and fiber for this country. Almost 6 million members strong. So they're our great partners, and they're the ones that develop our policy. Our policy sprouts up out of the county farm bureaus where our power and strength is, and comes through the process that gives us a roadmap for each year that we work for them in Washington, D.C., at our state capitals, and even at local governments. Yeah, there's something really special about the bond between the Farm Bureau members. You know, I've been part of a lot of organizations in my lifetime, but no organization has the same family feel that Farm Bureau does. Farmers are always there for each other, whether it be cleaning up after a storm or whether it's delivering hay to a drought-stricken area. It truly is a family. I just lost my loving wife. And the outpouring of love from this country and the farmers and ranchers was overwhelming to me and my family. Never will forget that. And that's what we do at the county level, state level. We come to the rescue of our neighbors and our friends and family, especially in agriculture. We are a powerful voice for the American farmer, and we do it every day while they're out back on their farms working. We have the farmers back. If you're a farmer and you're not a member, we would welcome you into our Farm Bureau family. And if you want to know more about agriculture, come be part of this great family. I think you'll enjoy learning what our farmers and ranchers do for you and your families each and every day.
Beef is a cornerstone of K-State football and a tailgating tradition. Philly cheesesteaks, chili, and the classic hamburger are just a few of the dishes found at Bill Snyder Family Stadium in the fall. However, beef is not just a staple in the diet of K-State diehards. The Wildcats' own offensive line, otherwise known as K-State beef, has made the high-quality protein an integral part of preparing for a winning season. In honor of this, the Kansas Beef Council has partnered with Wildcat NIL and Rally House to offer K-State beef offensive line caps for public purchase. These caps not only reflect K-State's love of beef, but also are a great way to give back to the community. For each hat sold, 1 pound of ground beef will be given to a local food bank in Manhattan. More than 900 caps already have been sold for a total of 900 pounds of beef to be donated thus far. To purchase a cap online, go to catsnil.com or rallyhouse.com. The caps also can be purchased at K-State football games through Rally House, who is selling K-State Beef Offensive Line t-shirts as well.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
Good day. Mitch Dewar here with Pinion Risk Management. The grain market has been under pressure lately. We saw December corn trade down to levels we haven't seen since 2020. Soybeans have been under pressure as well, moving back down to the lower end of the past few months' range. USDA has been trimming the yield on this year's crop and looks like there could be more to take off in the future. So why are prices falling? Export demand is currently taking all the blame, and for good reason. Not only is the United States not competitive with South America, but exporters are currently facing complications on the Mississippi River and at the Panama Canal. Seeing some pressure during this time of year while corn harvest is getting into full swing is normal as well. On the bullish side of things, we have outstanding ethanol margins. We are still looking at a huge increase in the soybean crush capacity over the next year, and this year's crop size is still being heavily debated. The trade will also be paying more attention to weather in South America as we move closer to their growing season. On Wednesday, the Fed did announce to hold interest rates steady and implied there would be another 25 basis point hike in 2023. To discuss the markets, give us a call at 888-452-8751. I'm Mitch Dewar with Pinion Risk Management.
That's our program. Thank you so much for joining us. Be social with us online at our social media pages. I'm Ken Rogers. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be with you next week on the Kansas Ag Report.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.